Have you ever stopped to think about what connects you to millions of strangers just because you happen to live in the same country? It's this powerful, almost invisible force, and that's what we're diving into today: nationalism.
I mean, really think about it for a second. What is it that creates that bond with someone on the complete other side of the country? Someone you'll never, ever meet. It's so much more than just lines on a map, right? It's this deep feeling of a shared story, a shared identity. And that feeling, that's the engine of nationalism.
The historian Benedict Anderson just hit the nail on the head with this idea of an imagined community. Now, he didn't mean imaginary as in fake. He meant that a nation exists because we all collectively imagine it into being. It's this incredible act of shared belief, this mental picture we all hold, and that's precisely what gives it so much power.
So, to put a finer point on it, what is nationalism? Well, it's the ideology that takes that feeling of community and turns it into a political mission. It's the idea that a group of people with a shared story, be it history, culture, or land, have the right to rule themselves, to be their own independent country, making their own decisions.
Okay, this is a big one. It's so easy to get nationalism and patriotism mixed up, but they are fundamentally different. The writer George Orwell drew a really sharp distinction. He said patriotism is about love for your home, your way of life. It's defensive. You're not trying to push it on anyone else. Nationalism, though, that's often about power, about believing your nation is better than others, and that's where it can get exclusionary and aggressive.
So where did this powerful idea even come from? Well, to get to the root of modern nationalism, we've got to go back in time to one single explosive event that completely changed the game.
Before the French Revolution, your identity was simple. You were a subject of a king. Your loyalty was to a person, King Louis XVI, for instance. But the revolution just flipped that entire concept on its head. Suddenly, you weren't a subject anymore. You were a citizen of France. Your loyalty wasn't to a man in a palace, it was to this big new idea called the nation. And this was a total game changer. The French Revolution essentially created the blueprint for building a nation. It took these electrifying ideas of liberty and equality and tied them directly to being French. They created powerful symbols, the flag, the national anthem, to forge a real emotional connection. And this model, it didn't just stay in France. It spread like wildfire, inspiring people all over Europe to start demanding their own nations.
All right, so that's the theory. But what does this look like in the real world? How do you actually build a country from scratch using these ideas? For that, let's look at the perfect case study: Italy.
Back in the mid-1800s, you couldn't just point to Italy on a map. It just wasn't a thing. The Italian peninsula was this messy patchwork of little kingdoms and states, and a lot of them were actually controlled by foreign powers, like Austria. For Italian nationalists, this was a massive problem. They didn't just see a collection of states, they saw one Italian nation waiting to be born. Now, this whole movement, called the Risorgimento, was pushed forward by three absolutely legendary figures. First, you had Giuseppe Mazzini. He was the soul, the passionate writer whose ideas lit the fire in people's hearts. Then you had Count Cavour, the brain, a political genius who played the diplomatic chess game. And finally, Giuseppe Garibaldi, the sword, the swashbuckling general whose army of volunteers actually went out and won the battles. These three together made the impossible happen. But here's the kicker. Even after they managed to stitch the country together on a map, the job was far from done. The statesman Massimo D'Azeglio said it perfectly. "We have made Italy. Now we must make Italians." What an incredible line, right? It gets to the heart of the problem. Just because you have a country doesn't mean you have a unified people. Creating that shared identity, well, that's a whole other battle.
And that challenge of making Italians brings us to a really important point. Nationalism isn't just one thing. It's a super complex idea, and it comes in different flavors that can sometimes even be at odds with each other. Getting this divide is the key to understanding how it works today.
So let's break this down, because the difference here is fascinating. On one side, you've got civic nationalism. This is all about belonging to a nation because you share its values, things like democracy, freedom, and the rule of law. It's inclusive. Anyone from any background can join the club if they sign on to those shared values. But then on the other side, you have ethnic nationalism.
This says belonging is based on things you can't choose, like your ancestry, your bloodline, or your native culture. It's inherited, not chosen, which means it tends to be pretty exclusive. This one distinction explains so many political conflicts around the world.
So when you zoom out and look at the big picture, it becomes crystal clear that nationalism has been one of the most powerful and complicated forces in human history.
And we really have to come back to Orwell's warning, because it gets right to the heart of this complexity. That connection between nationalism and the desire for power, that's what reveals its darker potential. Look, at the end of the day, nationalism is a double-edged sword, no question about it. On the one hand, it's a force for good. It creates community, it builds democracies, it inspires people to throw off their chains and fight for freedom. But on the flip side, it has a truly dark side. It can fuel paranoia and hatred, justify horrific wars, and lead to the persecution of anyone deemed an outsider. It has built worlds and burned them down, and sometimes it does both at the same time.
There's no doubt that nationalism shaped the world we all live in today. It drew the maps and built the institutions. But as we face a whole new set of global challenges, the big question is, what's next? Will these imagined communities of ours be a source of strength, or will they be what tears us apart?